So I'm here today to talk to you guys about the food, we call it the food calendar. What the food calendar really is it's how you will advance your diet after surgery. So when you come to the clinic, right, for your class with the dietitian, you will receive this beautiful calendar of the months where you have your surgery and the months that follow. And what we do is we go through the calendar and we tell you exactly on what days you will be bumping your diet up in the texture scale. So what you want to think about is on your day of surgery, right? You have surgery and then you stay in the hospital that evening. The next day after surgery, well, there's lots of things that will happen that day. One is that Dr. Vong will visit you, of course. He'll visit you at least twice that day. Sometimes he'll make a third visit, kind of depending on what's going on. One of the dietitians will try to pop in and visit with you as well. It just depends on which dietitian is up on the floor. She'll stop in and visit you. Most of the time we catch you guys when you're out walking in the hall. The other thing that will happen is food-wise, that first thing in the morning at 8 o'clock, you will be given ice chips. So that's the very first thing that you introduce to your baby is ice chips. I have heard they are really awesome tasting ice chips, okay? So you get those at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then if you tolerate the ice chips, then at noon they will give you some water. Also really tasty, I've heard. So if you tolerate the water, that's really wonderful. You can come to group that day. People love to see you. They love to see you up walking around and to hear about your experience in group. So you come to group. Then the next day, what will happen is at 8 in the morning, you will be given a box of Optifast. And we ask you what flavor you'd like so you can get your favorite, whatever that flavor might be. So you'll get that box of Optifast, and you need to drink that box and tolerate it before you can be discharged that day. So things to know about that is that one little box will sometimes take you 2 to 3 hours to drink. Okay, it's not like now where you can just chug it down and be done with it. It will take you a while to drink it down, and that's okay, that's a normal thing. The nurses are really fantastic. They'll give you this wonderful little container with some ice in it so that you can rest your box in there so that it stays cold as you sip on it in the morning. Then Dr. Vong goes up around noon usually to see how you did with your Optifast and to write your discharge papers. So if you've tolerated the Optifast, he'll discharge you. Don't expect to leave really early because, by the time he writes your paperwork and the nurses do all the stuff that they have to do, you'll leave, somewhere mid-afternoon usually is what happens. Then you go home, of course, and you will do Optifast for 7 days after surgery, okay? Just Optifast liquid, no bars at this point. You'll do probably like 2 to 3 servings of Optifast a day, not because we're trying to hold you there and we're limiting your calories, but mostly because that's about all you'll want to have. Because remember, your baby's brand new. You won't be able to hold a lot in that little baby. So about 2 to 3 servings of Optifast a day, only liquid. You can also do juices that you juice yourself at that point. So those of you who have a juicer, go ahead and make those lovely juices that you've been making, and you can have those that week as well. The next week after surgery, when you come back to see us, we will not weigh you, okay? Don't weigh yourself at home that week either. It's not really a good thing. You've just had major surgery, you've got all this fluid shifting around, your body's going, oh my gosh, what happened? And so you'll be weighing more than what you think you should be weighing. And so we ask people not to get on the scale because we don't want you to have negative thoughts. We don't want you to get on the scale and think, oh my gosh, why did I have surgery, right? Because it's not a true weight. It's really a lot of fluid that you've got on you. So don't weigh yourself that week. Wait till you come back the next week, and then we'll weigh you officially then, okay? So when you come back the next week, you come to group, and then you will start the first step in the texture scale. The first step in the texture scale is mushies. You do mushies for 2 weeks. Lots of interesting things to think about when you think about mushies, right? Think about what is a mushy. Things like fruit smoothies fall in there, avocado, applesauce, mashed potato, mashed yams, anything that you can cook really well and mash down kind of to a baby food texture falls into the mushy category. So when you think, the other thing to think about when you do mushies is you want to think about actually how we feed real babies, right? So think about if you've ever had any experience with a real baby, right? You wouldn't start that real baby with mashed pinto beans. That's not the first thing we introduce to a real baby, right? The first thing we introduce to a real baby is rice cereal because it's kind of thin and it's kind of bland. So with your baby, you want to do the same thing. And we usually recommend applesauce as the very first thing that you introduce to your baby because it's kind of thin and it's pretty bland, right? And so the other thing to think about is you don't want to just pick up a spoon the very first time you're going to try mushies, pick up the spoon and scoop up a big thing of applesauce and put it in your mouth. That's not what you want to do. What you want to do is you want to use what we call dip and lick. So you're going to take your spoon, you're going to dip it in the applesauce, you're going to pull it out, and you're going to lick the back of the spoon. You're going to stop, you're going to wait, and make sure that your baby tolerates it. Okay? If your baby tolerates it, then you're going to dip and lick again. Okay? So that's the very first time you introduce food to your baby. In that 2 weeks of mushies, right, I said you don't start with mashed pinto beans at the beginning, but at the end of the 2 weeks, you probably have worked your way up to mashed pinto beans at that point. So do it gradually, introduce foods to your baby, and start thin and bland and kind of work into thicker texture. After your and during your mushies, you also are going to want to still be doing OptiFast. Because mushies tend to not have a lot of nutrients in them sometimes, we want to continue to supplement with the OptiFast. So you'll do 1 to 2 servings of OptiFast a day. Again, just the liquid, no bars still. At the end of the 2 weeks of mushies, you will advance into fish. At this point, you can get rid of the OptiFast, which I'm sure you all are cheering about now because you've been doing OptiFast for a while. So you do the fish texture, which is the next step in the texture scale. Get rid of OptiFast. And when we talk about fish texture, right, we're not saying only eat fish. We're talking about the texture. So any fruits and vegetables that fall into that same texture are okay for you to have at this point. So think about fish, think about tilapia, salmon, all of those lovely fish, and think about how when you put a fork into them, they're kind of flaky, kind of falls apart, you put it in your mouth, you don't have to do a lot of chewing, it's just really kind of like melts in your mouth. So all your fruits and vegetables will follow that. So think about things like a really soft peach, right? Same texture as fish. Think about avocado, kiwi, really well-cooked broccoli. Would you do broccoli florets, or can you also do broccoli stalks, right? So stalks are too firm, right? So you want to do just the broccoli floret, and you want it to be cooked soft. Cooked green beans, cooked squash, all of those things fall into that fish texture. Okay, so you do fish texture for 2 weeks. This is also the point where you can add your multivitamin back in when you start fish. Okay. The next step in the texture scale, after you've done fish for 2 weeks, is seafood. So now we're getting a little firmer with your texture, right? So think about shrimp. Shrimp is a little firmer than salmon, right? And your fruits and vegetables will follow that. So now you can do cooked broccoli stalks, right? Because they're a little firmer, just like shrimp. And you can do raw broccoli, florets. You can do all those other things that kind of fall into the shrimp texture. You do shrimp texture for 2 weeks. The next step in the texture scale is chicken. So all your fruits and vegetables will follow that same texture. Now you're doing raw carrots, raw apples, all of those harder vegetables. You can do raw broccoli stalks now because it's firmer like the chicken. You do chicken for 2 weeks, and then the last step in the texture scale is steak, and that's the end of the texture scale, right? What is tougher than steak? Not anything probably, right? So all the fruits and vegetables, you're eating everything at this point because that's the end of the texture scale. The things to remember is that you really need to stay hydrated, okay? You should be carting around a bottle of water, a cup of water with you, and drinking, especially those first few weeks right out of surgery. That's your biggest job right out of surgery, is staying hydrated. So cart that water bottle, that water cup around with you, and sip, sip, sip all day long. The other things to think about is that what we talk about, and when you take your nice calendar home, that's just a template, okay? It's not set in stone, okay? So if Laura said, I can eat chicken on this day, and I put chicken in my mouth, and my baby doesn't like it, then that's okay. I want to step back into the seafood texture again. So never be worried about stepping back in the texture scale, because it's just a template. Everybody's body is different. Everybody's baby is different. The other part of the template is, though, that because Laura says I can eat chicken on Wednesday of this week, and today is Sunday, so I think I can try chicken now. Don't do that. Don't start earlier in the template than what we've told you, okay? You want to make sure you try it just on the day that we've told you. If you don't tolerate it, then step back in the template. We really appreciate you watching this. We hope that it helps you in your diet advancement after surgery. Please remember that you always have access to us. Call us. Any of the dietitians will be able to help you. If you don't have a direct number into our office, call the front office, Linnea, Patty. They will always forward you to us. You can also email us. And then, of course, we always see you guys in group. So thank you so much, and good luck on your journey.